There's a certain kind of quiet that clings to a place when the world outside has gone to sleep. The kind of quiet that fills the spaces in between thoughts, that makes you more aware of every little creak of the house and the distant groan of the floorboards. It's a strange feeling, as though the house itself is breathing, exhaling slowly in the stillness of the night. At least that's how it felt the first time the whispering started. I had lived in this house for several years. It's an old place, nestled at the edge of town, surrounded by trees that whisper in the wind and the distant hum of isolation. The house had character its crooked walls, creaky floors, and windows that didn't quite shut properly. But it was mine, and I'd convinced myself that it was exactly what I needed. Solitude, peace, space. It was a retreat from the chaos of life, a sanctuary in a world that was always moving too fast. But somewhere along the way, things began to change. Little things at first. Unexplained noises in the middle of the night. The kind of sounds that, at first, you convince yourself are just the house settling. A door creaking. The sound of something shifting in the attic. A breeze that rattles a window just a little too hard. Nothing that couldn't be explained away. But as time went on, the little things grew into something more. They started to feel deliberate, like the house itself was trying to communicate with me. And then came the whispers. At first, I brushed it off. The wind. The pipes. My imagination running wild. But as the days passed, the whispers didn't go away. They grew louder, more distinct, until one night they were no longer just faint murmurs at the edge of my hearing. No, this time they were clear. Clear enough to send a chill running down my spine. Let me out. It came from the basement. My heart skipped a beat. I hadn't been down there in months. The basement was dark and cramped. It smelled damp, like mold and dust had taken root in the very foundation of the house. It was a place that I had avoided for as long as I could remember. A place filled with old furniture, forgotten boxes, and cobwebs that made everything feel like it belonged to a past long forgotten. The whispering continued, each time more urgent, more desperate. Please, let me out. I can't breathe. It was so clear now that I couldn't deny it anymore. Someone or something was down there, calling out to me, begging to be freed. I don't know why I did it. Maybe it was the curiosity, the nagging feeling that if I didn't investigate, I would never be able to rest. Maybe it was fear that if I ignored it, the whispers would follow me forever. But whatever the reason, I couldn't ignore it anymore. I stood up from the couch, my legs unsteady beneath me as I made my way toward the basement door. The air around me seemed to grow heavier, colder. The familiar hum of the house felt distant, muffled. I reached for the door handle. It was cold to the touch, a sudden, sharp chill that shot up my arm as I turned it. The door opened with a slow creak, as though it were resisting my touch, reluctant to reveal what lay beyond. The stairs leading down into the basement were steep and narrow, each one creaking under my weight. The light at the top of the stairs flickered, casting long, jagged shadows on the walls. I swallowed hard, the hairs on the back of my neck standing on end as I descended into the darkness. The basement was even colder than I remembered. The air was thick with dust, and the faint smell of mildew mixed with something else, something metallic. I stepped further into the room, my flashlight flickering as I scanned the space. The beam of light cut through the darkness, illuminating old boxes stacked haphazardly in the corners, furniture covered in dusty sheets, and piles of forgotten belongings. But it was the shadows that caught my attention. They seemed to shift and move, stretching unnaturally across the walls. And then I saw it. A journal. A small, worn leather book, half buried beneath a pile of blankets and papers. It looked like it hadn't been touched in years. My hand shook as I reached for it, the cold leather sending a jolt of unease through me. I opened it slowly, the pages stiff and yellowed with age. The writing was frantic, hurried, as though the writer had no time to think, no time to make sense of their thoughts. Please, you have to help me. They're coming. They won't stop until I'm gone. I can hear them. I can feel them. Let me out. I turned the pages quickly, my heart pounding in my chest. The words grew more desperate with every page, more frantic. There were no names, no explanations, just a series of jumbled sentences, as though someone had been trapped down here for far too long. The handwriting was erratic, the ink smeared in places, as if the writer had been shaking as they wrote. And then, near the end, I saw it. A name. Margaret. The moment I read it, the air in the basement seemed to change. It was as though the very walls were closing in, pressing against me from all sides. I could hear the whispering again, louder now, as though it were right beside me. Let me out, please. Please let me out. I spun around, my flashlight darting across the room, but there was no one there. Nothing but the shadows, but I could feel it. Something was there, something watching me. The temperature dropped, and I could see my breath misting in the air. My pulse quickened, my chest tight with fear. I had to leave. I had to leave. I had to get out. But as I turned to run, I heard something. A sound, faint but unmistakable. The scraping of nails on wood, slowly, deliberately, coming from the far corner of the basement. I froze. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. The presence in the corner, whatever it was, held me in place. Its very existence seemed to hold me captive. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, it was gone. The shape vanished into the darkness, leaving only the cold, suffocating air behind. The whispering stopped, and I was left alone in the silence of the basement. But it wasn't the peaceful silence I had come to know. It was a silence that pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. I didn't waste another moment. I ran up the stairs, my breath ragged, my legs weak beneath me. I slammed the basement door shut behind me, the sound of the lock clicking into place reverberating through the house. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still down there, waiting. That night I couldn't sleep. Every sound in the house seemed amplified. The creak of the floorboards, the rattle of the windows, the hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. Every little noise made my heart race. And through it all, I could hear it. The whispering, soft at first, then louder, more insistent. Please help me. Please. It was coming from the walls now, from the very floor beneath me. It was everywhere. The house wasn't just haunted by the memories of the past. It was alive, breathing, pulsing with something far older, far darker than I could understand. And then one night I heard something else. Something that made my blood run cold. Margaret. Men. The name echoed through the house. The whispering had taken on a new tone, one of hunger, of need, of something that wasn't content to simply be heard. It was reaching for me now. I tried to shake off the unease as I left for work that morning. The whispers still clung to the corners of my mind, but I told myself it was just exhaustion, just the stress of too many sleepless nights. I had my usual routine. I threw on my uniform, grabbed my bag, and left the house, walking briskly to the office where the noise of the outside world could drown out the thoughts that had begun to crowd my head. The workday was long, draining, and filled with the constant hum of activity. It was exactly what I needed, a distraction. But it didn't last. When I finally returned home that evening, I was tired, hoping for a quiet night to myself, a chance to unwind. The house seemed quieter than usual, though. A bit too quiet, like the air had become thick, heavier than it should have been. The moment I stepped inside, I noticed that the whispers, soft, like a breeze rustling through old leaves, just faint enough to make me question if I was imagining it. I brushed it off at first, thinking it was nothing, just my mind playing tricks on me after a long day. But the more I listened, the clearer it became. They were back. The realization hit me like a cold slap to the face. I couldn't get rid of it anymore. The house, the whispers, Margaret, they were all a part of me now, a constant companion that I couldn't shake off. Every corner of this place was tainted with something I couldn't name. Something old. Something hungry.